Okay, welcome to our last lesson on finance. This is where we're going to talk about the TVM solver. We can use a spreadsheet for this. It's a little bit more complicated. So what we have is actually an app that can be accessible by Apple on the iPhone and Android on any other device. So it's a great app that we're actually going to use. And if you don't have access to either of those, then it is on the website as well. And so some of the screen captures in this lesson will be from the website. So I'll say which ones those are. But first off, we're just going to talk about this question: is it possible to solve these equations? And so the first one is actually solving for a regular payment. The second question is solving for the number of periods, so how long it would take. And the third one is actually asking for the interest rate. And we're going to use each one and use technology to solve each one of these. But the question is it possible to do it by hand? The first one, if you look at it, this is actually a present value question because it has the negative exponent. So it has a $10,000 present value, and it could be a 2% interest rate, but it might be compounded something else. And so the answer is yes, like we did that in our last lesson. We could calculate all of this, divide 10,000 by that, and we can get the answer for the regular payment. The next one is a little bit trickier. If we look at it, we actually can solve for this. We do use a guess and check method to solve for n that we've seen in this unit already in the exponentials. It's not the nicest thing to do. So if you can get it down to 1.02 to the n equals a number, so put the 300 on the other side, the 0.02, the plus 1 on the other side, and get it down to this, you can now start entering in values for n to get that number. So it'd be challenging, but you can get it. You can also use a logarithm that we learn in grade 12 advanced functions as well. So it is possible to do it by hand, but it is challenging. We can see why technology might be helpful to do this. The last question is a little bit different. The last question is very difficult to look at, and it's actually not possible to do by hand. Not accurately, at least. There is a linear approximation method to do it that we learn in university, but no, like we would say that this one is not possible to do. So we use a spreadsheet, which we're going to use in this class, a TVM solver. So this is the TVM solver that we're going to use. Technology is used to help find the unknown interest rate or the number of payments in an annuity. We can find anything with the TVM solver, but those are the two things that we need to use the TVM solver for. And so we're going to use the calculator from this website, fncalculator.com, or you can download the app to your device. I think it has the name EZ Financial Calculators. If you search financial calculators in your device, you'll get a picture that looks like this. That's the app we want. Just to give you an idea what it looks like in an iPhone, this is what it looks like on the internet. On Android, it looks something like this. And then on iPhone, it looks something like this. And there's like the Windows Phone app as well, where it's almost on every one. That's why this is such a good app for us, because it doesn't matter what device we're running, we can use this app, which I really like. Okay, and so we just want to look at a couple questions with this app. We don't have the same problem identifying variables as we did with the graphing calculator, because it really does tell you exactly what you're looking for, and so we don't really have to worry about that. We do have to note that the way the app is programmed, one of these two things has to be negative, PMT or future value. If we're looking for annual interest rate or the periods, which is what we're going to use it for, one of those two things has to be negative. So it's the way the app's programmed. We have to put a negative sign in there. Okay. So we're going to look at a couple questions. First thing we're going to do is identify a scenario. Now there's multiple scenarios that would use the same formula, but we just want to make sure that we understand how the formula is actually used and what the question might look like. So it's a little bit different way to go about examples. We're going to make up the question after. If that's difficult for you, you could just look at what the question is that we talk about and see how that formula is used to solve for it. So the first one is something we can do by hand, so we can verify it by hand, but we're going to do it in the graphing calculator or the TVM solver. So this could be we notice that this is a present value question because it is using the negative exponent. The present value is given, it's $10,000. And we could say that the interest rate is 2% a year, compounded annually for 12 years. And so that is one scenario that we might have, just a 2% interest rate, and it's compounded annually, so you don't have to divide the interest rate to get the 0.02. So we find the payment by entering in values into the TVM solver. And so I just did that ahead of time, and you just saw the website that I did it on. But you just punch in the values, 10,000 for present value, annual rate's 2. It tells you it's a percentage, so you don't have to divide it or anything. You just put 2. Make sure we write compounded annually here. Sorry, that mouse over is coming up. And then the periods is 12. So the periods is the number of times we're going to pay the monthly payment. Then we just click on the button PMT, and the payment will come up automatically for us. And you can see that it's negative. You don't have to worry about that, but like it is helpful to know so that when you're solving for interest rate or periods, you can make sure you put it as negative. Okay. The next scenario could look like this. So the regular payment's actually given, so it's a $300 regular payment giving a future value because the exponent's positive. So the future value is $14,000, so it's maybe an investment that we're saving for. The interest rate, again, could be 2% annually. So you could put 2% per year compounded annually. But I do want to look at a different scenario. So we're going to say it's 8% compounded quarterly. And this payment is done by quarter. Over here, 945 is done by year. And so we're going to say that the $300 paid per quarter. So it's future value $300 at the end of each quarter. $14,000 is the result. The interest rate's 8% compounded quarterly. How did I know 8%? Well, it's really just one of the scenarios it could be. But if you divide 8% by 4, that's where the 0.02 could come from. And so we're going to find the number of years. So we punch everything into the calculator. Present value is actually 0, but we don't have to put anything in there. It's not a present value question. You don't have to enter anything. The payment we put as a negative 300. The future value is 14,000. The interest rate's 8. It's compounded quarterly. And then we click on the periods button. If it's in your app, you just press the periods button. In the app, it might be tricky to get the negative sign. You just have to press the decimal a couple times, and it'll cycle through, and it'll give you a negative sign. And we notice that the 33.29 is the number of quarters. If we divide that by 4, we get the number of years. So it's 8.3 years. And so that's something that the app won't do for you. You'll have to do that yourself. And the last one, it's a $14,000. Again, it's a future value, so it's very similar to the last one. It's $300 payment. Because it's a 36, we're going to say that this is happening compounded monthly for 3 years. It's just 36 periods. You could do it annual interest rate for 36 years, but we're going to do it for 3 years compounded monthly. There's a lot of different scenarios you could do there that would use the same formula. The formula is helpful because we just want to see that you can't actually solve that by hand. If you find out the interest rate after, you could divide it by 12 because it's compounded monthly, plug it back in, and make sure you're getting 14,000. So you could check it by hand, but we can't answer it by hand. Okay. So again, in the app, we press in a lot of the same things, but instead of so we're going to do compounded monthly for 36 months. And the interest rate is going to be what we press, and so you can see it's 17.17% per year, and it is compounded monthly because that's what the app does. Okay. Here's some practice questions. There's only 3 questions to do. You can practice this with other apps or with the other questions as well from previous questions in the unit. But these are the big 3 that I wanted to look at. Omitted number 6 and 10, like they were on there originally. And so it's just that they're a little bit tricky. They can be used, but so you could do just do it as a multi-part question. And so that's something that you can try on your own. Okay?